Hi everyone, today is day number 1 of my 4-day book tribute for Women's History Month. Each day I am going to be reviewing a children's book about a woman of African descent. So the first children's book that I am going to be reviewing is A Song for Gwendolyn Brooks, written by Alice Faye Duncan and illustrated by Shaw Gordon. I saw this book when it came into the bookstore, and it truly caught my eye because I have been a lover of her writing ever since I was a little girl. The first poem that I ever read by Gwendolyn Brooks was Jim, and it went, "There never was a nicer boy than Mrs. Jackson's Jim. The sun should drop its greatest gold on him." And it continues talking about Jim. I read that poem in the first grade. So I have not seen that many children's books about Gwendolyn Brooks. I mean, I've seen a lot about Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou, but not about her in particular. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the author and about the illustrator, then get into the book review. At the end of this video, I will be reciting one of her poems. So look forward to that. Now, the author. Alice Faye Duncan discovered the snappy, snazzy poems of Gwendolyn Brooks when she was a child scanning the crowded bookshelves in her parents' home. After Alice earned an English degree in college, she went to library school and spent every free moment writing for young readers. Her books include Honey Baby Sugar Child, Memphis, Martin, and the Mountaintop, and the 12 Days of Christmas in Tennessee. When she is not writing, researching new books, or visiting art museums, Alice serves as a school librarian in her hometown of Memphis. Visit her at alicefayeduncan.com. Hey, I kind of connect with this lady. I have an English degree. I'm about to go to library school. I used to spend a lot of time in art museums. So I'm liking her. When you go to her website, she has a lesson plan for almost all of her books. So when you visit alicefayeduncan.com, at the bottom of lesson plans for books by Alice Faye Duncan, she has a sonnet lesson plan, A Song for Gwendolyn Brooks, and it can be downloaded. She also has a section that says, "Will you give? I am accepting kindness to create stickers and postcards for my children's book, A Song for Gwendolyn Brooks." So you can donate via PayPal if you would like her to create more materials related to her book so that it can be accessible to youth. So Alice Faye Duncan. Next is Shaw Gordon. Shaw Gordon is a freelance illustrator and comic artist raised in both Orlando, Florida and Queens, New York. Shaw graduated from the School of Visual Arts with a BFA in cartooning and illustration. Her comic Kindling was published in early 2017. She has worked with clients such as the New York Times, BuzzFeed, Lenny Letter, and Narratively. She is currently based in Brooklyn, New York. Visit her at shawgordon.com. Okay. So when you go to her website, you will see beautiful, vibrant art. I love it. Like, it's a young Black lady in Queens, and all of her work, it just has this glow coming from it. It looks like it's part digital, part freestyle. I love her work. I hope she illustrates even more books. So, about this book. This book, as I said, was published this year, so it is relatively new, and I am very excited to be reviewing it. When you open the book, it has beautiful flower patterns or floral patterns, and at the front is a portrait of Gwendolyn Brooks. How this book is laid out is it is written in the poetic format. So you will see parts of Gwendolyn Brooks' poetry, but you will also see Alice Faye Duncan's poetry as well. And so each poem goes through the life of Gwendolyn Brooks. It is a biography. It starts off talking about where she grew up. She grew up on the south side of Chicago. Didn't really have much, but she did have very supportive parents. She wrote all of the time, and she observed the neighborhood around her. Usually when you have a writer or a poet, most of their work usually stems from their immediate environment, what they see around them. It's kind of like Wordsworth. He wrote a lot about nature because he was out in nature all the time. He had a lot of things to think about. But then you had other writers that would write almost hallucinogenic poetry because that is what they were on. So most people write what they know. It talks about how supportive her parents were. Very supportive parents, which I thought was a very powerful thing, especially during that time. If you were a young, Black, creative individual and you were just writing poetry in that time period, most likely what would have happened is your mother and father would have basically told you to stop lollygagging, or they would have supported you but ushered you towards a different career field, because maybe they felt that you wouldn't be able to make it as a writer based off of the environment of America at that time. Some people, they did poetry in secret, or they were writing in secret because their family thought it was nonsense. They're like, why don't you become something real, become a doctor? Whereas her parents, they basically formulated her life or created a lifestyle for her where she was able to hone her gifts, where she was able to grow into her talents. They made her she didn't have to do chores. Her chore was developing her craft. And if it weren't for her parents doing this, we probably would not have had a Gwendolyn Brooks that we know of as the Pulitzer Prize winner. So, anyway, as the book goes along, it just has all of these powerful, powerful illustrations. I'm not going to show you all of the illustrations, because of copyright, but I'll show you the ones that truly stood out to me. So, this one, this illustration, you see this? This is her mother, and her mother is grabbing her by the hand. She's very angry. The reason her mother is angry is because the teacher, her educator of Gwendolyn Brooks, stated that Gwendolyn had plagiarized her work, that she didn't write her work. And this truly upset her mother because she knew her child was a genius. And here was a teacher saying that Gwendolyn Brooks did not write her work. This instance reminded me of what happened to Phyllis Wheatley. Phyllis Wheatley, as I stated in earlier videos, she was brought to America during the Middle Passage. She was enslaved by the Wheatleys, and she was a very prolific writer. And many people did not believe that she wrote her own poetry, not only because she was of African descent, but also because she was enslaved. So they didn't think she had a mind at all, but they were all wrong. Gwendolyn Brooks, her writing style, it was almost like she could write in almost any style, you see. She could write in vernacular. She could write Shakespearean sonnets. She could write in free verse. She was a very diverse poet. Her writing was so expansive that most of her work ended up in anthologies. One of her most anthologized pieces is We Real Cool. I first read that in high school. I was like, we real cool. We skip school. It's about a group of boys basically skipping school, playing pool, doing the wrong thing. But yeah, she wrote about what she knew. She wrote about what she saw. And as she grew and grew and grew, her talents opened many doors for her, not only in her career, but also in her personal life. She gained a lot of friends that were writers. She even met her husband. He was a writer too, but he sacrificed his career he's basically put his writing talents aside so that he could be supportive of her and her writing talents, even though he probably still wrote every once in a while. Kind of reminds me of Coretta Scott King. Coretta Scott King was she went to, conservatory school, I guess musical. She was a very excellent singer. She could have had an entire career just singing, but she placed that aside for the bigger goal, which was her husband's dream and the civil rights movement. So I feel like that is something that her husband did for the greater good of all. In this book, she also has a sonnet written by Gwendolyn Brooks, which I will read to you now. And it is called The Children of the Poor. Sonnet number 2 says, "What shall I give my children who are poor, who are adjudged the least wise of the land, who are my sweetest lepers, who demand no velvet and no velvety velour, but who have begged me for a brisk contour, crying that they are quasi-contraband, because unfinished, graven by a hand, less than angelic, admirable, or sure, my hand is stuffed with mode, design, device, and I lack access to my proper stone, and plenitude of plan shall not suffice, nor grief nor love shall be enough alone to ratify my little halves who bear across an autumn freezing everywhere." Ooh, I love that last line. This reminds me of the poem, "What Shall I Give My Children Who Are Black?" I believe it was by Margaret Burroughs, who's in, or what Shall I Tell My Children Who Are Black? By Margaret Burroughs. I wonder if she knew Margaret Burroughs. That'd be kind of interesting. But yes, she got married, she had a family life. Her daughter actually is doing a lot of keeping her legacy alive and helping with young writers. Her daughter is named, I don't know what her daughter's name is, but it is in the back. It says, "Sing a song for Gwendolyn Brooks." At the end of the book, there is an author's note, which goes into a more detailed biography of Gwendolyn Brooks. There's also a timeline in the back for those of you who are homeschooling or are educators. And you can go across this and download your lesson plan from Alice Faye Duncan's website so that you can have an even more vivid and more intense book discussion. She also has suggested readings by Gwendolyn Brooks. So Gwendolyn Brooks wrote a novel. I did not know that. She has Bronzeville Boys and Girls Pictures by Faith Ringgold. We also sell that at the bookstore. There's a bibliography at the end. So yes, I give this book a thumbs up. I give it 10 stars, 10 frogs, 10 elephants. I love this book. This is going to be in my collection forever. One day I hope I can meet the author and she can sign it, or at least the illustrator as well. So now I will be reciting a poem written by Gwendolyn Brooks after this video is over. And all of you have a happy reading day. Research more about Gwendolyn Brooks, and happy Women's History Month. Look forward to day number 2. Bye-bye. Sadie and Maud by Gwendolyn Brooks. Maud went to college. Sadie stayed at home. Sadie scraped life with a fine-tooth comb. She didn't leave a tangle in. Her comb found every strand. Sadie was one of the livingest chits in all the land. Sadie bore 2 babies under her maiden name. Maud and Ma and Papa nearly died of shame. When Sadie said her last so long, her girls struck out from home. Sadie had left as heritage her fine-tooth comb. Maud, who went to college, is a thin, brown mouse. She is living all alone in this old house.